He came to try to kidnap the kids. Oh my goodness, he is probably trying to kidnap the kids. He'd already wired all of our money to the cult. He became a little overly aggressive with Trey, and not in a good way. I told TJ there was two things. The moment you try to get an extra wife or a concubine, or you try to move us to their compound, I'm done. And so to finally just let it go was, in a way, freeing. I'm like way more peaceful now.
This is Mothering Holistically, a podcast amplifying everyday moms' voices, creating a relatable space to share stories, practical tips, and inspiration. We empower moms to embrace every season of motherhood with confidence and pursue their dreams with resilience. I'm your host, Kaylee Berlinee, a mama finding balance in motherhood because balance is key when mothering holistically. So no matter where you are connecting with us, please follow or subscribe and give us feedback as we continue to make this podcast motivational and helpful for you all. So today we are chatting with Christiana Cook, a mother of 5, including triplets, a forensic psychology graduate, and a future law student whose story is equal parts heartbreaking and hope-filled. After her marriage to a former NFL player ended amid his sudden involvement in a high-control religious cult, Christiana found herself pregnant with triplets, raising 2 older children, and rebuilding her life from scratch. Her story reminds moms that even when life implodes, you are still worthy, still growing, and still deeply loved. So please give a very warm welcome to Christiana. Yay! So hello!
All the cheering.
Yeah, like I said, huge crowd.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I definitely want to start all the way at the beginning. You lived through what many would call the unimaginable. So can you take us back to the moment when you knew you had to walk away and from that marriage and the environment?
From the marriage and the environment. Well, the marriage, I knew it was over. So he had already visited the cult once, and he'd come home, and the cult was like, they think that, ironically, they think that Black people are the true tribe of Judah, and they follow Levitical law, but not all of it. They're very picky choosy. So TJ had gone there, and he wanted me to come with, but my mentor, my therapist at the time was like, I don't think you should. He's like, who knows what they're going to put in the food, also that kind of stuff. Also, hugely pregnant with triplets, uncomfortable. TJ had just gotten back from an inpatient treatment facility for depression and anxiety. He was trying to get total and permanent through the NFL. And every time Trey woke up, our son, he'd be like, is Daddy in Colorado? And I was like, no, Daddy's home. He's just out working out or whatever. And so TJ wanted me to go right away. And I was like, I'm not going to go. Every time Trey wakes up, he still doesn't think you're here. And I'm like, I'm his only stable person. And he's like, well, I'm not going to let my decisions be dictated by the feelings of a 2-year-old. And it's like, but he's your son. You should care that he feels safe and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't go with. He went. But when he came home, he was a lot more aggressive. He's like, you should have seen their kids during their church service. They were quiet. And I asked them, how did they stay so quiet? And he's like, the other guy was like, the rod, a lot of the rod. And I was like, I believe in spanking, but one of the things that he became a little overly aggressive with Trey, and not in a good way. And I was like, buddy, no. I was like, he's 2, he doesn't understand. We were trying to introduce new techniques for putting the hand on the arm instead of being like, mom, and be like, oh, if your hand's on my arm, I hear you. I'll come to you in a moment. Let me finish what I'm doing. Yeah, but the moment I realized, I told TJ there was 2 things. I was fine if he wanted to think he was a Jew. I was fine that he wanted to practice all the Jewish holidays, eat kosher, all that kind of stuff. I was fine with that. I was like, but the moment you try to get an extra wife or a concubine, or you try to move us to their compound, I'm done. And he had left after Trey's birthday, said he was leaving for an unknown location, for an undisclosed location for an unknown amount of time. And I was like, will you be back for in time for the triplets to be born? And he was like, I don't know. Let me know when it's going to be. Because you never know with triplets. Because, And one of the phone calls we had, he said that he felt that God told him that we had to move, that we should move there. And I had already told him that was one of the things that I was unwilling to do. And so when we got off the phone, I called a divorce attorney and was like, hey, let's set up a meeting. Though initially all I did was try to get legally separated. So the marriage was still binding, but like all our assets would be divided because I was still at that point hopeful he would come around.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't like totally write him off until after I'd gotten connected with Eileen, who her husband was also in the NFL, and he was like the sensei to TJ, if you will. And I was asking her, I was like, do you think that he can come out of this? And she's like, I hope for you he could. She's like, but honestly, no. She's like, I don't think he will. And so I just kind of decided that I would move forward as if he wasn't, because there's a verse that says like, hope deferred maketh the heart sick. And continually hoping that like, oh, if I can just get this person to talk to him, or if I can just do this, or blah, blah, blah. Like I was trying to solve it so much, and like perpetually seeing him not having any change it made me feel sick. It was just really heartbreaking. And so to finally just let it go was in a way freeing. But there's still, I mean, like there's still some sadness of like I don't have the nuclear home. But what I had before is not something I'd ever want again. Like a lot of guys will ask me like if we're like going on a date or whatever, they'll be like, oh, well, if you ever left the cult and like told you was sorry, would you ever go back? And I was like, if you escaped hell and somebody was like, hey, would you like to go back in? Would you? And I'm like, no. He was a horrible husband prior to the cult. Like he was a habitual cheater. He was the laziest human being you ever met. Like, I mean, any store, Home Depot, Costco, if he could be in one of those like carts for like old people, he would. Because he was just that lazy, like wouldn't even walk. So yeah, I'm just like, well, no.
Yeah, so there was just this, it was already starting to, kind of like you said it earlier, just signs of this being something that could take over him. What was it like at this time? You were pregnant, you also had 2 small children. What were you going through mentally?
I went into very like factual mode. I like when I'm in a high stress situation, I put on my Spock mind. I don't know if you're Trekkie, but like Spock was a Vulcan, and so he
Okay.
had no human emotions. He was half Vulcan, so he predominantly functioned pure logic. And
Okay.
so I just would think like, what do I need to do? What do I need to accomplish? And there was a lot of things like legally so he came to try to kidnap the kids, the elder 2. And I didn't believe it at first, but my mentors, and this was like after he had already gone, he called me. He's like, I'm coming home to get some important stuff. And I was all like, what on earth could you want? Like he already left with a month load worth of clothes. So I was like, what could he possibly want? So I called my mentors and they're like, well, you should get out of there. And I didn't want to be there. Like he'd already threatened to throw me out of the house and that I'd be the biggest pregnant homeless person the world ever saw. Called my parents, told them the same, and that they better make a space for me because their daughter was going to be pregnant and homeless. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to be here. So I had to like quickly get as much important things out of the house as I could. Like he'd already wired all of our money to the cult. So, and we had some like heavy metals in the safe. And so I called a friend who knew how to get into those type of safes because he like messed it up before he left. So like you had to know how to like turn the code and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't have bandwidth for that right now. So I called a friend. He came over, got it open, loaded it into his car, got out of there. So he took all that. So it was like a backup essentially for us to survive off of. Left the house and went to my mentors, and they're like, well, you can't go home tonight. Our FBI friend told us that he's probably going to try to kidnap the elder 2, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I respect them because my options were at that time. And I just logically looked at it. I was like, either I go home and he does kidnap my kids and I'm effed, or I go with them. I have a really uncomfortable night and he didn't try to kidnap them, but it was just one night. It's uncomfortable, but that's the worst that could happen. Or the best that could happen, he was trying to do that, and now my kids are safe.
Yeah.
So we went really far away. We stayed at a hotel. They made me turn off all my like tracking devices on my phone because like their FBI friend was like giving them all the things that we ought to do because like he had dealings with cults and things like that. So we did all that. Went to bed. I was like my hip, my foresciatic nerve was like so pained because I was like running up and down 3 flights of stairs to like get everything out of the house as quickly as we could. And that night, actually, he had told me, "Oh, I've left the house. It's safe to come back, blah, blah, blah." And then come to find out he was trying to stay at one of our neighbors' houses, like adjacent. He said he would drive
Right.
back. He wasn't. He was trying to stay at her house. Like I would have never known he was there because we lived on a farm. So her house
Okay.
was like a mile-ish away.
Mm-hmm.
But I had actually called her out of all my friends, being like, "Hey, can you go check to see if TJ's car's still there?" And I kind of made her a little bit apprised of the situation, but not fully. And so then after he called to stay at her house, she called me and she's like, "Hey, TJ just called asking to stay at my house." Like, no funny business. Like she was much older, so it was weird that he even had to mention that. But she was like, "Yeah," she's just like, "I told him no." So he was around. He, I guess, called my sister, went to my parents' house, like trying to find us because he was like, "Why hasn't she come back?"
Yeah.
And then the next day, he called my mentors, ironically, and was like talking to them. And I was still on the phone trying to figure out like, things to do. Can I find out where he is? And they're like, "No, not unless you declare the phone stolen," like all this kind of conversation. So then we start driving back to the farm because we thought he was gone. Or at least he was on the phone driving when he was talking to them and he like pulled
Mm-hmm.
over or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, "Okay, it's safe to go home." So we start driving home. And then all of a sudden I get this like weird text. It was like, "Hey, heard you're having a hard time, blah, blah, blah." Click the link. And I thought it was from Verizon because I was like sleep deprived and addled. And so I clicked it. Luckily, I wasn't driving. And it was like, "Hey, thank you for sharing your location." And it was some weird text that TJ figured out probably through the cult because he was never that savvy how to figure out where I was. Luckily, it showed me in the middle of 394, the highway. But I was just like, "Oh my goodness, he is probably trying to kidnap the kids." And so we went to the police, and the police were like, "Well, he can legally enter the home. He can legally take the kids. You have no teeth unless you were to get like an order for protection." They're like, "Our advice, go stay somewhere where he cannot legally enter." And so I moved into my parents' house that night. And they gave up their master bedroom. So me and my 3 kids, or it was 3 of us, like Trey and Rory, were all in
Mm-hmm.
my parents' room and they stayed in the guest room. And I lived in my parents' bedroom for like 2 years until we were able to build a room into the garage for my brother. And then the triplets went into his room. And then like all of us did a nice little charade of moving
Ritual.
bedrooms.
Yeah. Wow. And how far along were you at this point?
He left January and I was induced April. But with
Okay.
triplets, so like
7 months.
they only let me go to 35 weeks with triplets, which is
Okay.
like because they say like, "Oh, any longer and bad things can happen, blah blah blah." But I was able to do a vaginal delivery, so because I had like shopped around for that because I did not want to have a
Wow.
C-section. Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
nice.
And none of them were breech or anything like that?
So the doctor was like, so long as the first one is head down and large enough to pave the way, it doesn't matter if the other ones are breech because like it's open.
Mm-hmm.
So Trinity was head first and she came out, and then the other 2 were breech. So
Oh.
he like had his whole arm up there, grabbed them by their feet, and I just had to push their heads out. So
Wow, that's amazing. My baby A, so my firstborn was breech. She was sitting on my cervix, so
so you had to have a
that
C-section
sucks.
then?
Mhm. It was she never moved the entire like, of course, she moved, but she never
Hmm.
repositioned herself, and, like, through my entire pregnancy, they were like, "We're gonna wait to see if she moves," and then I got so far along where the doctor was like, "She hasn't moved by now.
Like
Odds are
she
she
likes how
won't."
she's sitting. No, Trini, she took the camp. She like moved in there and she was head down. She like did not let the brothers get into her zone. She's like, "I am first one out. Sorry, boys."
I'm
But
the oldest. Do they
yeah,
know she's the oldest? I feel like I know some moms or some parents don't share because,
they
like,
don't
they
really they don't talk about it. I mean, I've
okay.
shown them the video because it was 9 minutes from
Oh,
Trini
okay.
out to the last one out. And like the other day we actually watched it and they're all like, "Oh, that's me." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's you." And they're like, Paulo kept being like, "Where am I? Where am I?" Because he was the last one out. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "You were giving the doctor a run for his money, hiding in mommy's uterus." And I was like, they like dosed me with morphine, didn't tell me, which I was really upset about because I had like withdrawals, like shaking like a leaf afterward and like was throwing up for 12 hours.
Wow.
It was horrible. But anyways, because they thought they would have to cut me open and do an emergency C-section to get him out because
Mhm.
he was playing hide and seek with the doctor. But luckily, I was like, I could tell that something was going on. They were not being very upfront with me, which I didn't like because like I was
Mhm.
still perfectly coherent. And I could tell that something was up. So I started like praying immediately. And then the doctor was able to find him. His ankle was bruised, like black and blue, because of how hard he grabbed onto it. But yeah, but no, they don't really seem to know. The
Yeah.
older two know the order, but the triplets amongst themselves don't really talk about it.
Hmm. That's amazing though. You had them natural or vaginal. So
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. I know how to like I shopped around too because I was hoping that maybe I could, and it was like no doctors in California were doing twin vaginally, and one
Mm.
mom went all the way to like Minnesota or something like that to get her
Mm.
twins born naturally or vaginally. So, anywho, I was
Yeah.
like, well, my daughter was breech, so anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean,
uh,
I was, yeah, at that
mhm,
time would be the one. And so I was like, I need, like, it was a COVID time too. So it's like, I could only have one person with me. And
oh,
obviously it wasn't TJ. It was, the godmother to my kids, Olivia. She
okay.
came and stayed with me. But it was just like, yeah, I don't know. I remember I hadn't been very angry the whole time he'd been doing what he was doing. But when they broke my water, all of a sudden I got really angry and I was like, why isn't he here? It's like that a-hole. Because he delivered the other two. And so I think it was just, it hit me. My life is totally different now. Like he's never met the triplets, and so it's just like he's not delivering them. He's not here.
Is he still
The life
is he
is
still involved with the cult?
the, oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't look super often, but like I'll go and look on the different heads of the cults, like their YouTube videos and things like that. And sometimes I'll see them plucking chickens or see him like in the back doing some sort of playing the drums or something. But I think most recently I saw that he does have a new wife. But I think he's had at least one already because one of his friends told me about that. But they can have multiple wives and they don't marry legally. They just, have them.
Wow. So
Yeah.
did you end up getting like a legal divorce and everything like that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. I know sometimes it's like hard to get in contact with certain scenarios. So, oh, I
Well,
know
he
it's tough.
didn't show up for the legal separation. He showed up for the last hearing for the divorce and tried to spout off some of his because they also think they're sovereign citizens. So that's like where they don't think they have to obey the laws of the land. And so some of the documents he sent the court was hilarious, but he was all like accusing the judge of malfeasance, started claiming like maritime law, which is the law of land at sea, like has no bearing on marriage whatsoever, but he's quoting it. It was very intriguing, to say the
Yeah,
least.
yeah, it is. Okay.
It was
At least it
funny. I
all
mean,
worked
my,
out.
my lawyer, after we got off, he was chortling. He was like, oh my goodness. He's like, that was great. Because we got the default divorce because he was so rude to the judge. And
Oh,
so
mm,
everything went my way because the judge was like, well, I saw that he'd given stuff to the court, but like on a Friday, which is technically for them just one business day. And she's like, well, it's not there. And he's like, well, how about we just reconvene? You can check your docket. And she's like, well, you can tell me what's in the documents. And he's like, no, we can do this later. And she's like, okay, well, then we're going to move forward without it. And considering you haven't responded, she's like, I'm going to give her default divorce. She's like, there is no such thing as default divorce. She's like, I do not consent. She's like, I don't need your consent. Meeting adjourned. And it was done. And I was like, oh. Because I'd been praying. I was like, Lord, I'm willing to suffer through
yeah.
this longer. I was like, but the financials of it, I'd prefer not.
Mhm.
And so it was
Mhm.
just such an
Mhm.
answer to prayer that he like blaringly showed his full colors to the judge. And it probably was helpful she was a woman because they think women are not equal to men and their property in that cult.
Yeah. Mm.
So I was like, oh, that was great.
Yeah. So he had like no respect.
No, super disrespectful.
Wow. So I know you've kind of mentioned it through this conversation, but I just, kind of want to hear. So what sustained you? What gave you the strength and the courage in this season when everything kind of seemed to be crumbling around you?
Well, ironically, so like before everything really hit the fan, TJ and I one night, because he was before he left to go visit the cult for the first time. Like our Pastor Jonathan, he was always like, the Lord says that He doesn't waste, our sleep, that He can speak to us in our sleep. And so I said to him, I was like, well, let's pray that God speaks to us in our sleep about whether or not you should go. And so I had a dream that night, a prophetic dream, of all that was going to happen. And essentially, the dream was like I went down into a basement that was Kabir's house. And there was like piss circles everywhere, like old, like ranging of multiple different colors, like that had been that way for a long time. I was like, ooh, this is disgusting. And so then I'm like looking around, looking for TJ. And all of a sudden, all the people are really excited that somebody's coming. They're like named 2 letters, and I don't recall what they are at the moment. But I was like, oh, it must just be another football player because, like, why else would they be so excited? And then all of a sudden comes this like old white man through the crowd, and he like walks up to me and he's like, oh, save the 3rd round for me. And I'm like, 3rd round of what? And I was like, is this like, Pride and Prejudice? And it's like a dance card. And then I realized it was like, no, you meant like sex. And I was like, ooh, gross. And then while he's talking, he's like morphing, like growing breasts, and they're disappearing. It was just like, it was real gross. And I was like, where is TJ? So I'm like looking around, and he's sitting on the floor with his back to a couch, which, mind you, he would have never sat on the floor because his back, So I was just like, well, that's weird. And he had a laptop in his lap, and from the laptop are like these wires coming up and like snatching his eyes open so that he like can't blink. And I go up to him, I'm like calling to him, and he's like, can't see me, can't hear me, nothing. And I was like, what the H? And so then all of a sudden I turn around, and there's like somehow an even lower level to the basement, and up the stairs comes these 2 white guys, like butt to hip, walking up without bending their knees or elbows, like Gumby style up the stairs. Wow. And I'm like, this is weird as hell. I'm like, what is happening? And the next thing I know, I'm like whisked to my parents' house, and I'm in my parents' room, living there in their room. And I'm saying to my mom, like, all the times TJ had cheated, which I had never disclosed to them because I was like, I could forgive, but families often don't. And I was like, if I'm telling her all the cheating stories, I was like, the marriage is over. That much I know. And so, like, obviously now, years removed, all of those different symbols, I know what they mean now. Like, the 2 men were actually, I found out later, they were the 2 men that, like, had gone to a Christian school in Wisconsin where Eileen's kids were going to school because I think Christmas is satanic. And they showed up with guns, and there was, like, a whole police scenario, and, like, they were put in jail and all this kind of stuff because they didn't have a license to carry. And then the old man is actually the man who started the cult. Before Dowell took over. Dowell's like now in charge, but the old man, he was brought on charges of sexual harassment and stuff, and actually ended up dying before that was concluded. One of them he was convicted of, and then he had a secondary one that was brought up, and he died. So I was like, oh, so that's who that guy was. And then I did end up living in my parents' bedroom, which at the time when I dreamt it, I was like, why would I ever live in my parents' room? Like, that's their bedroom. Like, weird. And then I lived in there for like 2 years. So for me, I felt a lot of comfort in knowing that, and like God had done that in my life before, like give me prophetic dreams. It was generally always of like something negative that was going to come. And I used to be upset about that. But I was reading Exodus, and God would tell Moses of the bad things that would come. And so then when they happened, Moses didn't freak out. But like the first time that Moses went and talked to Pharaoh and was like, hey, let my people go. And then he like made it way harder for them, like wouldn't give them the hay and all this other kind of stuff. Moses like freaked on God. And he was like, why did you make me do this? Now it's worse for them, blah, blah, blah. But then God kind of laid out the plan, like we're going to do 10 plagues. He's not going to let him go. And then he will. So then Moses didn't freak out every time bad things were happening. And so for me, I was like, oh, okay, so these prophetic dreams are to help me not freak out. So when everything was happening with TJ, though I did try everything I could think of to try to like get him to come to sanity, the dream was that he couldn't hear me, see me, and his eyes were snatched open looking at the screen. So it was like he was already brainwashed. There was nothing I could do. And when I told him the dream the next morning, his only comment was, oh, well, Kabir does have dogs. It probably explains the piss circles. I'm like, no, dreams are symbolic. It was signifying the filth that had been going on and for how long it was going on. That this was a dirty, gross place and that they didn't clean. Like it was just filthy. So, so I take great comfort in that. But like, obviously like the Lord did help me, and he put people in my life, like the mentors that got me out of the house so that the kids weren't kidnapped. Lots of different things where it was like helpful. I mean, like the cult did come and steal my van at one point, and that was probably like the only time I freaked out a bit. I was like in my front yard, my robe, rolling around in the grass. Instead of sackcloth and ashes, it was bathrobe and grasses. And but it turned out to my benefit. because the car was stolen. I got some insurance money from it right as like, because I had some money before
Mhm.
like TJ moved all the money away, but that money was running out. I couldn't pay the mortgage anymore. The money was gone. And so right when it was empty, that money came in. And also my church paid some of my like hospital bills and stuff like that. They stepped in and helped as well. And then after I got everything done with the divorce and like the car, there was no, I had a transit van because like you had 5 car seats and there was no other cars that could fit them. So I'm essentially driving like an Amazon car and there just wasn't available. And I ordered one immediately and it didn't come available till right after I sold the farm and I had money in my accounts again to actually purchase it because all the money
Wow.
from the stolen car was used up paying my mortgage until the house sold. And it was
Okay.
perfect timing because I was like, can we sell it on December? Because then I'll have owned it for 2 years. So then I'm not going to get hit with the taxes and capital
Mhm.
gains, all those kind of stuff. So like all the timing of it was just perfect.
Divine.
And
Mhm.
it's like you can't see that any other way than like God protecting. But it was like just enough. Him keeping me afloat and keeping me along the way for everything.
Yeah.
And that's just been, so for me, I had also already gone through some pretty hard stuff, like not probably nearly as traumatic as this, but like I had gone to a missionary school, had a really interesting scenario happen over there. It was pretty dramatic. And for me, that was far more shaking to my core because it was done by a Christian organization than
Mm.
with what happened with my ex. So I was like, I know God's faithful. I know God will help me get through. And then just seeing all the people that like came into my life to help support. There was random women from a church I didn't attend who came every Tuesday and Wednesday to hold babies, feed babies, to give my family a break. So like they did that for the first year of their life.
Wow.
Every Tuesday and Wednesday, which was great. And then like one of my family friends, Sandy, every time we were about to like rip our hair out, like because the babies were just like all crying and it was just
Mhm.
horrible, magically would show up at the house and be like, oh, hi. And we'd be like, oh, take one, and it's just like, I need to go take a walk, because just like you want to die. The first year was, the first 9 months were really hard until I found this book called like 12 Hours of Sleep by 12 Weeks. And it was a mom of multiples as well who wrote it. It was like a routine,
Okay.
how to get them to go to bed and all this stuff. And so like I was on a triplet like board on Facebook and some mom suggested it. So I ordered it, read it in a day, and immediately implemented it. And once
Uh-huh.
I saw that it worked, I was like, okay, this works. Like they get an hour nap in the morning, like a 2 hour nap here, and then they go to bed by this time and all this kind of stuff. I was like, now I need to figure out how am I going to provide for these children. And so once I realized that worked, I immediately got back into school to finish my undergraduate in forensic psychology
Mhm.
and knew that I wanted to be a lawyer because of all the stuff that I had to go through with like him stealing the van and having to deal with the criminal case for that. And then, obviously the divorce, doing it twice essentially because like the legal separation, the
Right.
NFL is very litigious and like they kind of make things really difficult. So like some mistakes were made because just of the information they gave us to me and my lawyer. So for the second round, I was like, okay, well, this isn't income. This is a retirement account. So I can take it legally. And so like we figured those type of things out to try to um make it work. And I
Yeah.
liked the I know like my mom always says it makes it sound horrible when you call it a game, but it's a game. There's rules. Like, well, that
Mhm.
that piece can't do that, but it
Yeah.
can do this. And so it's like, how do you arrange the pieces on the board to
Mhm.
give you what is best for you?
Mhm.
And I mean, that is the law. Like, it is just a bunch of moving pieces and what fits where. And
Yeah.
I liked it. And I was like, and it was helpful. And I like seeing things done and like the satisfaction of like, okay, this is done and I helped somebody. And it's like, when my van was stolen, one of the lawyer friends of my mentors called with me to the police because the police kept mishandling me. I
Mm.
couldn't get them to understand that, like, no, it was stolen. They're like, this is civil. It's not criminal. I'm like, no, it was my van legally. He took it. Like, and they're like, civil. And so then the lawyer called with me 5 minutes, him talking. I had an investigation number. The investigator called me the next day. And it was just like 5 minutes of his time made a world of difference in my life. And I was like, I would love to be able to be that person to help other people with just the teeniest bit of my time, just get it done. And so I liked
Yeah.
that.
And how are you, not to like jump ahead too much, but it's just like, how are you juggling school and 5 young ones?
Well, that was what that book with the timeline that it gave. I
Mhm.
was like, okay, I can do an hour of homework during the nap here. I can do a couple hours during the nap there. When they go to bed this time, do it there. And so I was like, and if I needed more time, depending on the class, I was like, I had a lifetime membership. And so you get 2.5 hours of daycare there. And I was like, but I do want to get my workout in. But worst comes to worst, if I have to, I'll do it then. So I just created time management skills of like, okay, and then the kids go to preschool. Like I did want to be a stay-at-home mom. That was taken out
Mhm.
of my cards when I was like,
Mhm.
now you have to be the one to provide. So
Mhm.
they started going to the preschool for like 2.5 hours for that. So I knew they would be gone then. And then it was really just working around the triplet schedule mostly.
Okay.
And like when they go to bed, staying up, like I'd put my kids to bed by 7 and then
Mhm.
um generally they'd be asleep by 8. Like, and the rule is still the same, but they don't have to be asleep, but they do need to be asleep by 8. And I was just like, I would just do my homework then, and my goal was to always be done by at least 10, so that I could be
Okay.
to bed by 10:30.
Okay.
Um, so it was just a lot of, and I would like read my whole, I'd like do my reading. Either some of the classes they had like audiobooks I could listen to, or you can like make it talk on your computer. And
Yeah.
so I would
Yeah.
like bring my
Mhm.
computer to the gym and like walk on the treadmill listening to it. So I just figured out ways to multitask, do the things I needed to, combining all the
Mhm.
things. And if you just think about it, or like, okay, well, that didn't work too well. Or sometimes my parents were burnt out and they're like, this is burning us out. We need something else. Then I'd have to shift everything because I used to work out at night. But then they're like, but our morning hours are when we have energy and we would like you out of the house in the morning so we can get done what we need to. So I was like, switched it around. I'm like, okay, how do I get us to work out in the morning and what, all those type of things. And it's just essentially just watching and learning what worked, what
Mhm.
didn't work, and
Mhm.
then implementing. So like continuously adapting, but time management mixed in there. And so, yeah.
Yeah. The time management and the what is it? The Tetris with time is so,
Hmm.
yeah, you definitely learn that as a mom.
Routines.
Yeah.
And also like kids thrive off of routine. They really
Mhm.
do. If they have a good routine, they feel secure and safe. And if they don't know what's happening, cause like they always ask the same questions like, well, we're going to the gym like we normally do. And then we'll go home and we'll eat lunch. And so yeah.
Yeah, definitely routines. Because I mean, I was watching, like, moms on YouTube, and one mom, had her twins, like, a year before me, and so she had her daughters going to sleep at 7, and when I was pregnant, me and my husband looked at each other, and we were like, "We gotta do that." 'Cause 7 would be so ideal. You'd still have time for yourself and, recover and get all your energy back. So, I'm sure that's probably because you said down by 7, sleep by 8. We had, like, a
Hmm.
similar
So like
situation.
they like, cause like now they're older, so I'm like, I do all the bedtime stuff. I'm like, you're in your room, like, and I'll tell like Alexa to set an alarm for 8. So I'm like, once she goes off, you tell her to go quiet, and I go, then you need to be in bed. And I go, if not, you're gonna lose your good marks, cause like I have like a dry erase board on the fridge with
Mhm.
all their names, and if they do things that are good, they get a good mark. So like cleaning your bed in the morning, getting dressed, and eating your breakfast, like if they can do all those things quickly, they get a good mark. If they help me with something, I'm like, hey, would you do this? And they do it, they get a good mark. But then if they're naughty and they don't listen, they lose their good marks. And if they get 10, I have like a prize box. And so they get to pick a prize. And so they're very motivated off of the prize box. But it's great because like then I'm not always like having to be like, do you want a spanking and all this kind of stuff? Because that's just not fun. Like I do believe in spankings for certain things, but I don't think it has to be used for everything.
Mhm.
And the good marks make it so much more nice. And then of course I live in a multi-generational home, so like my mom gets to use it. She's like, oh, if you do this, I'll give you a good mark. If you're not, you're like, oh, you're being naughty, erase that good mark. And then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, so it's like, it's nice because then I create a way for other people to be able to keep my kids in check. And then even with schools, I
Mhm.
talk to the teachers and I'm like, if they're good throughout the day, and I ask them when I pick up, I'm like, were they good? Do they get a good mark? Yes or no? And then they'll say why they didn't. And so then the next day they try harder so that the teacher will tell
Mm.
me, oh, they were good enough. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. Give them their good mark. And even for Trey and Rory, who are older, like Rory's a
Mm.
chatterbox and she's not supposed to talk when she's on the carpet time. And so like the teacher will send a little note home with her, like, she did good today, she gets a good mark. And Rory's really excited to hand me that, and then with Trey, it's like sometimes by the end of the day, he's a little tired and he doesn't finish his homework. So that's his thing. If he can maintain his energy throughout the day and get all of his homework done, his teacher will like put a little star on his chart and I see it and then I give him a good mark for it.
Oh,
So it's just really nice because like I can the other teachers will work with me to make all this good and it's reinforced everywhere. And
yeah, I love that. And how old is your oldest?
he's 7, he'll be 8 in January.
Okay, that's nice. And I, like you said, how everyone is on the same page, because that consistency, I'm sure clearly it's working. So I like that. I'm gonna note that the good marks. I like that a lot.
Mm.
So how has that experience with your ex-husband changed the way that you mother or the way that you see yourself as a woman?
I think mothering, I'm far more. I mean, I was always like, faith was always important. For me, it's like on the line. They have to know God. They have to understand scripture. They have to understand theology because a lot of the men in this cult, once the kids turn 18, because like they don't care about them until they turn 18 and they could join the cult. And then they come to try to get them to join the cult at that point. And so for me, I'm like, hell no. So I'm going to make sure my kids understand theology, that they understand that this cult is entirely unfounded and it's illogical based on all that scripture has to say, and that they understand that and that they have their own personal walk with the Lord to back all that up. Because like with TJ, ironically, his dad was a pastor, but he never really made his walk his own until kind of college. But he still like never studied scripture for himself. Like if he had a question, he'd call his dad and his dad would tell him what's what. And like he'd never like wrestle with scriptures himself to figure out like, oh, these seem to be contradictory. Like what's the story here and all that kind of stuff. And so I think because of that, when the cult came in and they started asking questions, causing confusion, and he couldn't answer them because he didn't have a very firm foundation, he was confused. And then they're like, well, here, come with me. This is the answers. And they re-docked him at their dock of the cult and their way of thinking. And it was pleasing for him because, like, instead of him being like a cheater, like, oh no, now you're not a cheater. Those were just extra wives or concubines. I'm like, well, that's convenient for him, but it assuaged some of that guilt. And yeah.
I see. That makes a lot of sense, actually. And, my dad is also a pastor, and I wrestled with a lot of things. And I'm just now starting to really dive into the Bible for myself and start to better under it myself. And then, of course, it's kind of like for me, stories that you're told when you're a child, and now you're starting to read them as an adult. It's like starting to click, and you're starting to better understand. And like you said, have a better foundation and stand firm. So I can definitely understand how when you haven't done that, it's easy to be manipulated or controlled.
Mm.
Or like you said, to erase that guilt. I feel like my biggest thing has always been if someone does you dirty and they're like, well, the only person that can judge me is God. And I've already apologized to him. And it's just like,
No, is that not that action?
yeah.
Scripture says. Like
um,
we're meant to judge in the family of Christ, we're judging each other. Like that's part of it. Cause it's like Paul all the time was all like, that guy who's sleeping with his mom and y'all are happy about it. He's like, I cast judgment on him, throw him out. He's like dirty. He's like the pagans don't even do what you guys are doing. He's like disgusting. Like I was like, yeah, nobody was judging nobody. Like, no, Paul was judging the hell out of people. And then when Peter was like eating with the Gentiles one day and then the other Jews show up and he's not eating with the Gentiles the next, he calls Peter out and he's like, Peter, you double-minded piece of poo. And Peter's like, oh. And Paul's like, yeah. It was like so funny. And like second Peter at the end of his thing was like telling people to keep reading the word. And he's like, and some of the things Paul says are hard to understand and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, poor Peter. I think he was scared of Paul. Like when you read it, like thinking of them as people, like reading that little excerpt right at the end of his book, I was like, that's funny. He's like, oh.
And the way you're explaining it makes it like sound fun.
Because
And
that
people
is
are
what
like,
happened.
And people are actually animating, like using AI to like animate parts of the Bible. And it's I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So triplets plus two
Triplets.
other children.
Yeah.
That's a lot of love. What surprised you most about being a mom of multiple? Now we want to transition. Of course, we are going over your past, but this is also to uplift. So,
Surprises me the most about being a mom of multiples. Hmm. I don't know. I mean, because I don't really know anything else. I mean, I do recall my first baby thinking how hard it was. And then I
mhm.
had triplets and I was like, oh, well, I mean, like it was still hard. Trey was like a horrible sleeper. So that was like part of it. But like with triplets, I just had the night sessions were by myself because my parents are old. And
Mhm.
so every 3 hours I had to feed them. And so I would pump, set up their milks, take them out, change their diapers first to kind of wake them up a little bit, pop them on the boppies, pop the bottles in all their mouth, and then while they're drinking, pump again for the next feeding. And then once that was done, obviously like adjusting their bottles as it starts falling out. And then when it was done, put the milk away, take them, flip them, and then beat them like meringue drums. So they all get burped at the same time. And then after all that was done, put them back in their little beds. But like Elias, I called him Mr. Fussy Buckets at the time because he just would not sleep well. And I just knew, I just told myself, like, you're not going to sleep. That's just the thing. And so I had audiobooks to listen to like during the time. My sister just asked me the other day, she was like, what do you remember much about that time? I go, I remember the books I read. I was like, I remember she was an assassin. The Art of War by Sun Tzu, just because like they quote it in so many movies. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, Sun Tzu, and it like makes you all fancy. And I was like, well, I want to know what Sun Tzu
What they're
has
talking
to
about.
say. So I got
Mhm.
like an audiobook. And ironically, I actually wrote down a phrase from it because I was like, this is actually useful for parenting. This
Okay.
one, this one phrase, he goes, consistent and effective orders inspire obedience. Inconsistent and ineffective orders provoke disobedience. And he
Mhm.
was talking about like your troops.
Mhm.
And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, you're not, the rules are changing. There's variation. So it's like, I don't trust, what you're doing. But it's like, oh, every time I don't do this, I get punished for it. Or every time I do this, I get my good mark. Like it
Mm.
create,
Yeah.
you like that.
Mhm.
But I was reading it and I was like, oh, like, look at that. Like, that sounds like parenting.
Yeah.
Because when you're inconsistent, your children turn into rabid animals. And when you're consistent on top of it, it's far more peaceful because people will be like, oh, your kids are so well behaved and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And it's like, and I often think of myself as a general. I'm like, just, like you will do this and you will do it now, and it is what it is. It's like I have too many of them to be lenient because then they'll turn into, I'll have anarchy.
Yeah. They're
It'll just
definitely
be
gonna
chaos.
realize fast that I was just one of me and five of them.
Yeah. So it's, you just can't. Because like my therapist, she always makes the statement. She's like, if there's something your kid does and you don't like it, she's like, figure out a way to make it stop because you don't want to start to dislike your kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's really important.
Yeah.
So it's like something may not necessarily be a moral failing, but if I don't like it, you better stop it because I want to like you.
Yeah.
Because you're my
100%.
kid,
100%.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I like
So,
that.
no, that was actually like part of the problem I had with my ex-husband. He talked so slow. And it would drive me nuts. Like, and he were trying to make like a YouTube thing. And I was like, part of the problem, TJ, I'm like, you talk too slow. I was like, I can't even listen to you. It's hard. And like, I don't know. I mean, if you feel into it, like he made some pretty crazy videos. Like that was the other weird thing. He was super private prior to the cult. Like, I couldn't even tell people he liked sushi because if they know I like sushi, they know I spend money on food.
Mm.
Weird private. And
Wow.
then all of a sudden, he's making these videos after he's joined the cult, and he's like talking about cheating on me in the videos. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you just said that to the world. And then, like, I'm at church, and somebody came up to me, like, I had no idea TJ was cheating on you. And I was like, how did you know TJ was cheating on me? She's like, he made a YouTube video. You haven't seen it? And I was like, no, I haven't. And so then I'm
Ah,
like, tell me what was in it, because I didn't want to watch it at the time. It was too triggering then.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course it's getting back to his dad, who's a pastor, and like then he had to make another video, be like, leave my parents alone, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, you just said all Christians are going to hell and that you've been cheating on your wife forever, but it's not cheating because you're enlightened. Well, there was this one video he was on where he's like, I reached the pinnacle of Christianity and it just wasn't enough. And I'm like, the pinnacle of of Christianity was cheating and lying and gaslighting. Like, who knew? Who knew? And then he gets to the cult and they do like a deliverance and he has demons come out. And I'm like, so you were at the pinnacle of Christianity whilst having demons inside of you. I'm like, maybe perhaps that was part of the problem. So,
Whoa.
yeah, because in their cult thing, they like do a deliverance thing. And from what I heard, they like actually put them on drugs. Like they sprinkle it in the food and then they get all weird and wiggy. And yeah, I mean, obviously I never went, but this is what I've
Yeah.
heard. So,
Yeah. I think you've kind of mentioned it, but like, what did healing actually look like for you in real life?
I mean, writing the book, working through that was very healing because I'm trying to write it. I don't know if you've read Educated by Tara Westover.
Mm-mm.
It was a national or international bestseller, but anyway, she grew up in Idaho. Her dad, they're in the Mormon faith, but her dad was extra culty. So they couldn't even go to the hospital. They wouldn't take Advil, didn't have birth certificates, all of that. And she grew
Wow.
up that way. And then she eventually got herself to college, realized a lot of the things that her dad had told her growing up were not true, like just the facts of it and stuff like that. And so she like got herself out of the cup. In the fashion that she told it in like a first person narrative. So kind of like our books that we like to read, like from
Yeah.
Feyre's perspective and like all the things she's
Mm-hmm.
going through and the people and all this kind of stuff. She wrote it in that way. So like that's my intention, is to write my book that way because I like those kind of books.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's write it like that because that's what I enjoy reading, but it still be a memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And so in like writing about how I met him and the stuff that went on, I was like, it was hard. A, I got really angry, but B, I was really like ashamed because I was like, why did I keep dating him after that happened? I was like, oh my goodness. Because like, again, like with his like weird sexual things, but like when you grow up in a like super like an evangelical Christian thing, like anything sexual is, I don't know, for me at least, seemed shameful. And so like
Mm-hmm.
when I read some of the stuff that happened and I remember these stories, I like, called my best girlfriend at the time and I was like, Rose, did I tell you about this? And she's like, no. And I was like, because like I would talk about like those type of experiences with my non-Christian friends because I didn't have to like fear any judgment or like, well, you shouldn't be doing that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But not with my Christian girlfriends. And there was like one event that I don't know why I would have ever continued dating him afterward. So I was a massage therapist and that's how I met him.
Okay.
And I remember it was like they were staying at the hotel still. They didn't have their own places because they were rookies.
Okay.
And I was there giving him a massage. Tyrus was gone, who was his roommate. So after I was done with the massage, I went into his room. It was like, okay, you can get dressed, let me know when you're done. Because that was like my general routine.
Yeah.
Went into his room, sitting there on the bed, waiting for him to be dressed. And then all of a sudden, he walks in, butt naked, holding a boombox and a candle, fully erect. And he's like, and he walks in, and I'm just looking at him like we're not even boyfriend girlfriend. Like we've gone on a couple dates, and he's like, looks like a banana, doesn't it? And I'm like, well, I guess a chocolate covered banana. Like not really sure what to think of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he like comes in and he's like trying to make out with me. Granted, I told him he's not allowed to kiss me on the mouth unless we're boyfriend girlfriend. So he's like kissing me everywhere else. Starts trying to take off all my clothes, and I'm like mentally talking to myself, like, okay, well, I mean, I've made out in my underwear before. I guess it's fine. Like trying to like make it okay, like what was happening. And then
Yeah.
he kept trying to take off my underwear, and I was like, no, I really don't want that. No, I really don't want that. And then he keeps pushing the envelope, and then all of a sudden I just start crying. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, don't know why you keep pushing. And I was just like, why won't you just stop? And then he's like, oh, well, he's like, I thought you were lying about being a virgin. He's like, I just thought you were trying to make yourself seem more desirable. And I was like, why would I lie about that? You know? And he was like, well, some girls do. He's like, it's not really common to meet a girl who's a virgin. I was like, well, then all my friends are unicorns because they're all virgins. And I was just like kind of spastic and like, ooh.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like I remember getting my clothes back on. Then I'm like, I want to go. And he's like, well, I'm so sorry. He's like, is there anything I can do to make it up to you? And I love sushi. He didn't like sushi. And I was like, and I didn't have a lot of money. He did. And so he was like, I was like, well, you could take me to Uni's, which is like a really expensive sushi place in Excelsior. And he's like, fine, we'll go there. And so we went there and got a bunch of sushi. And then I'm like, but why would I ever hang out with him again? That was so disrespectful, super horrible. He didn't respect me, treated me horrible, pushing the envelope because he didn't believe me. And I don't know why I continue to see him after. Like, there's nothing written in my journal about it. I just don't know. But it's like the fact that I got to a point where I was crying and he was pushing me so hard sexually is like horrifying. And I cannot still, like, I had to write that portion. And I was like, I really don't know why. The only thing I can figure is I was in my naivety. I thought I can pray away his problems. I can fast away his problems. And I grew up middle class or whatever, and I went to Orono High School, which out here, like the median household income is $750,000, which I mean, California, everything's way more expensive, but out here, like, that's a lot of money. And yeah, so it's just like, I went to high school with like a crap ton of rich kids. Like, all of them had UGG shoes and Coach purses and North Face fleecies, and it was like all the things, and I didn't have those things, and I wanted those things. And so I think, there was definitely the allure of the lifestyle he could give me. His dad was a pastor. He was saying he wanted to be more Christian. We were going to all like the Viking Bible studies. We went to 2 of them together, one at Everson's house, one at B Rob's house. And I was just like, oh, okay. And yeah, so I was like, we're on the right track, and like we prayed together every night, and he was like trying to stop watching porn, like putting like covenant eyes on his phone and all this kind of stuff, even though he knew how to get around it and it didn't matter. But in my mind, I was like, the things are working, they're getting better. How women always think they can fix things. And I've always thought that, like, well, if I try hard enough, I can fix it. I even had these weird delusions in my head that if I messed up on my own time, like, let's say if I masturbated or something, like, it somehow in the cosmic universe gave allowance for TJ to mess up. But so long as I was really good, it would bar his ability to do those naughty things. Like, nowhere in scripture does it say these kind of weird things that were going on in my head, but
Yeah.
those were the things in my head. So it was just like, I think, a way to try to assert control over something that was uncontrollable, and just a limited understanding of all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think you said, how did I do the healing? So it was really a lot of in the writing of the book. And obviously I have a therapist. Her name is Lynn. So her husband, Dr. Rudy, is also a therapist, and he specializes in sexual addictions. And so we would working with him while we were still married. And we even like went out there and did an intensive one of the times. Like, TJ perpetually would come clean about all of his cheating ex-Branzas like once a year. And one of the times he did it was like while I was pregnant with Rory. And I was like, oh. So we went and did an intensive there. Our friends, the Mays, watched Trey. We went, and then I got to meet Lynn, and she has like a different perspective of therapy. And so after everything hit the fan, I was like, I really feel like Lynn's perspective of therapy would be more helpful in helping me like rehabilitate. And so I've talked with her every 2 weeks since like everything kind of went down, really. And so in writing the book, like different things that would come up, I would talk to her about, work through, and then even just sometimes too, different things I had thought in my head. I remember there was a time where I was like, let's say TJ has CTE, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, like what a lot of NFL players get, which is just the brain.
Head, yeah.
And, I was learning about it in my psychology courses because I chose to like study it so I could have a better understanding. And I was like, what if, in his inability to make logical decisions and rational decisions, he chose this cult, and I said for better or for worse. and I divorced him while he's in his worst. And she was like, traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, does not an immoral man make. This is the way she phrased it. And she's like, essentially, yeah, his decisions could have been infected, like his impulsivity, all that kind of stuff. She's like, but even prior to that, he had these sexual issues. And she goes, and I think a large part of his attraction to this cult was his sexual issues. And she's like, and you had the biblical precedent to leave, because of his sexual infidelities and blah, blah, blah. And so, like, just being able to work with her and the Christian organization and have her be able to talk to me from a theological standpoint as well really helped me, like, work through a lot of, like, the different things that would come up in my mind of, should I have tried harder? Should I have done this? And just, like, really work through that. I think, like, probably the only thing, like, I still sometimes struggle with currently is, like, in the idea of ever having a mate now is, like, what man would want a woman with 5 kids? And she's like, you have to look at it differently. She's like, you're a phenomenal woman. She's like, you have a lot of integrity, very intelligent, you're beautiful, all these things. And she goes, and your kids are not a liability. She's like, your kids are phenomenal. And she's like, and any man would be blessed to be able to help be a part of that legacy in raising them and loving them. She goes, a lot of men will not see it that way. She goes, but those men, regardless if you're having children, would not be men you'd want to be with. She was like, because their ideologies are effed. She's like, the type of man you'd want to be with will see them as blessings and would want to love them. And so that's the thing that I think currently am working on a lot is when I'm going around and different guys ask me out and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, but I have 5 kids. But that was like something ironically TJ tried to curse me with when everything went down. He's like, well, if you leave me, he's like, what man would want a woman with 5 kids? Blah, blah, blah. Or if they do, they're just going to sexually abuse them. And blah, 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 blah. All that kind of stuff. And obviously there is a high statistic of that, but I would ensure that that was not the case. Have other people look in on it and all that other kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. Have you experienced like any positive scenarios in dating?
Yeah.
No.
I've gone on dates. But because like I know more of what I want this time around, the moment that I realize that they don't have what I like, because I think a major problem too on my part in their marriage was like I didn't respect him, and men so deeply want to be respected. And the problem is that he wasn't respectable. Like he was cheating and lying all the time. But beyond that, I couldn't trust him to make decisions. He would do things like he would give large sums of money to his family out of nowhere. We hadn't discussed it. It wasn't in the budget. We had budgeted for a certain amount of monies he could give his family and all this kind of stuff. And he would always do whatever. Or when everything hit the fan that time, all of a sudden I find out that because like he and I got in a big fight, ironically, and him not following the budget and giving a crap ton of money to his family again. And I was like, fine. I'm like, fine. You have fun trying to run the budget and do all this stuff. Because like I didn't want to send it broke. Like I read all sorts of money management books, was talking with our fiduciary all the time. And it's like, you handle it. I was like, I'm going to take a step back. Have fun. So I was just so irritated. So for me, like when I was studying for the LSAT, I had like a group of guys that I would study with. And one of them was so smart. And I was like, that's so sexy. Because he was better than me at the LSAT and he was really smart. Like he had other failings. So like that didn't, go any further. But how smart he was and how driven he was, that I was like, that is hugely attractive to me. It was like how hardworking he was. Like, so for me, like in choosing somebody, he has to be really driven because obviously like I'm pretty high performing. And, going into law, all this other kind of stuff. Like I need to know that I have a man that I could admire and trust and look up to.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the problem, is finding one that I have all those things with, but also is Christian and I find attractive. So,
I mean, I don't think that's I wouldn't say that that's super. I mean, because that was
once
like
you get to law school, it'll be a little easier.
Yeah, and then on top of that, because the financials will be there, hopefully they won't feel intimidated by 5 kids, you know? Would you be
Mhm.
willing to have more kids if they don't have kids?
If so long as I knew that he would love my 5, like, 'cause statistically, generally, like, once you give them more, they don't treat my 5 the same as they would the new ones,
Yeah.
and that's the only thing that I wouldn't want, because it's like, you would be the whoever the man would be, he would be the only father they've ever known, because Trey was 3, Rory was a year and a half. They don't remember TJ at all
Mm.
because of childhood amnesia. Like, you don't generally have any stable memories prior to 6 years old,
Yeah.
so they don't
Yeah.
remember him, and then the triplets never met him.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I'd have to believe that you could love them and the new ones I would give you, and then also be okay with the likelihoods of my potentially having more multiples, because that's how that cookie crumbles.
I know, I'm so scared to try again, oh my goodness.
I'm fine with having twins, just not triplets. Like, at least I have 2 titties. Like, boop, boop.
Yeah,
Feed
yeah.
them both at the
I
same
yeah,
time. But like,
I was gonna touch upon that. So did you ever have to supplement, or were you able to exclusively pump, nurse, that type of
I
thing?
exclusively pumped for like 7 to 8 months. I was making
Okay.
8 liters of milk a day. I I got really skinny. And it was so sad because I got good at eating not too much while I was pregnant, because like I couldn't, because like they're all in there.
Yeah,
And then I had to like totally backwards that. And it was like popsicle ice cream. Because if I didn't eat enough, I wouldn't make enough milk the next
yeah.
day.
Mhm.
And I didn't have the fine, like, I'm your holistic motherhood show. So like all the good formula based are like
Mhm.
super expensive and like from Germany and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And so I was like, I just have to do this because I'm not going to give my kids a bunch of corn solids and chemicals. And
Yeah.
so I was just pumping up a storm. And then eventually I started getting some money. And so then I was like, okay, so I started supplementing, but Trinity would not drink the formula. She was like, F that. I only want the boob milk. And so she was exclusively breastfed from just the pumping.
Okay.
Um, and then I think I stopped pumping altogether when they were a year. Like, I still had stuff frozen that they would thaw, but I was like, I'm done. I was like, I need this. It literally felt like a ball and chain attached to my boobs, because like I pumped all the damn time.
Yeah. 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 And
And so,
did you ever experience, like, mastitis, especially because you were
oh,
producing milk for 3?
yes, because ironically, after TJ stole the van with all the car seats in it, Elias got RSV and he was 3 months old. Luckily, I had still one of my singleton car seats, so I was able to bring him to the emergency room. His oxygen saturations were like in the 80s,
Mm.
and he was in the ICU for a week. But when I was first got there, I needed to pump, and I didn't have
Mhm.
anything with me because I was like, oh. And
Mhm.
my poor boobs got so full that I got really bad mastitis in one of them. So like while he was at the ICU, like I couldn't stay with him anyways because I had to deal with the other babies. But I got super sick, like sweating profusely, like sweating out the bed. Luckily, I was in a king size bed, so I would just like move spots throughout the night
Oh my goodness.
because I was like trying to get better from having the milk not be able to come out so long while I
Mhm.
was there waiting for them. And I was like, I know they got pumps here. Please just bring me one.
Yes.
And they like, by the time they brought me one, they're like, we were in a normal hospital room. And they're like, we actually have to bring him back down to the ICU. And I was like, well, I can't come because I just started pumping. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I'll come when I'm done pumping. And so, yeah, it was just really horrible. Yeah, that was,
Wow.
I got mastitis with the other ones, like my singletons, but it was never like I never had the fevers and like the super sick like I did. It was
Yeah.
just like the painful, like, oh, let's rub this out. And
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Because I stopped pumping at 6 months and was just like, "It's gonna be what it is," "They're just gonna be with me," and they got pneumonia at 6 months old or 7 months old,
Mm.
like a month after I stopped pumping, and they were like, "Well, they can't be here while she has pneumonia." And I'm like, "Well, I can't pump, and she has to eat, so she's gonna stay here." And, like, luckily, we always, for some reason, carried the pack and play in the car, so we camped in the hospital, and I was like, "This is just I'm not pumping," because I was experiencing that. Um, pain. I got clogged ducts all the time, so I can only imagine with 3. That's amazing that you're able to do that for a year. That's awesome.
Well, there was sunflower lecithin, I believe it's called.
Mhm.
If you take that as a supplement, it makes not getting clogged ducts and making lots of milk. But really, it was just like drinking lots of water and drinking tons of food and pumping every 3 hours. The consistency. And I also had to like be stressed. I couldn't be stressed at all when I was pumping. So
Mhm.
I watched this like super long Chinese show. It was like 10 seasons long. I think the main character's name was like Sunshine, and it was like Sunshine, and like just craziness.
Could you
But
understand it, or was it just, like,
well,
entertaining?
I would read it. I'd read the
Okay, okay, okay,
subtitles. Like
okay.
I started to
Okay.
catch on to some of Chinese phrases, but that like for me when I think of pumping, I think of that show because it was so long.
Yeah.
And during the day anyways, at night I did the audiobooks, but
Mhm.
during the day so it wouldn't be loud so the babies could sleep.
Yeah.
Um but yeah. Yeah. Chinese shows. And the ending was so bizarre. I was like, what's happening? One of my other sisters had watched it too, and she's like, yeah, I was not sure what was going on. It seemed like a dreamscape, but then it was like real life, and you're like, what? I feel like they just gave up, the writers.
10 seasons are fine, whatever.
Yeah, and I was just like, what is happening? Like people were showing up and like having dance scenes, and you're like, this has to be like some sort of dreamscape. And you're like, what? Like just not realistic. It was really weird.
So, how do you help your children process your family story in an age-appropriate way?
So with Trey and Rory, it's gotten like they get more details now, not
Mhm.
still all of them, but like for the longest I would just say, daddy played a lot of football and it made his brain sick and so he's
Mm.
gone. And that was like the triplets. Ironically, actually, I think it was Paulo asked me first time yesterday, "Where's my daddy?" And like he's never asked that, and they're 4.
Mhm.
Generally, none of them really had any idea of like dad until they were 5 and in kindergarten.
Okay.
So that was a first. Because, obviously Paula never met him. And I was like, well, your daddy, he's not here. I was like, his brain's sick and he's with a bunch of other people whose brain is sick. Because, I mean, if you're in a cult, your brain's
Mhm.
sick.
Mhm. That's a good
So,
way to put it. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, I do think TJ probably has CTE because, like, in the studies that I did, like, there was this major study of Poth's, like, dead guys, NFL players, and 92 of the brains were looked at, and 91 of them had CTE. I was like, was the one brain a kicker? Like,
Right.
just
Right.
want
He
to,
didn't get hit all the time.
yeah, because it's
Wow.
not based off of major concussions like the movie Concussion made it seem. It's actually just
Right.
playing the game and how long you played it. Because like I even looked into like Aaron Hernandez's story, the Patriot
Mhm.
player,
Mhm.
and he played like the same length of time that TJ did because he started playing football when he was a junior in high school, just like TJ had, and then only played a couple of the years into the NFL before he, got arrested for killing people. And then after he committed suicide in prison, they looked at his brain and he had very severe CTE, and he only played the football. I mean, I never calculated the amount of years, but it was like the same amount of time as TJ had. And so I was like,
Wow.
it is very likely that TJ has CTE. And so then I started looking into how can you reverse it and stuff like that. And you can do hyperbaric oxygen treatments, which is you go into this thing that makes you at essentially the equivalent to being 8 feet underwater. And so the molecules are more potent at that point. So like your blood can absorb them better. And so you have the higher oxygen too. So you're having more oxygen molecules in the space. And so it can get in. So initially it was created hyperbaric things for people who were apoxic and like they had a cut and it wasn't healing. And so they'd put them in there and then the body would heal because now the area that didn't have enough oxygen to heal was getting that because they were under that hyperbaric pressure. And
Interesting.
then they started to do studies on the brain as well for like stroke victims and things like that. And they were noticing it was healing. There was a version where they did it with an NFL player who had CTE and they did notice huge improvements.
Hmm.
And then I actually, for my final paper for my forensic psychology class, they wanted it not to be as medical, but more psychological. And so I was like, well, trauma, like what I went through, does cause memory loss.
Mhm.
And I experienced that personally. And so I was like, I wonder if there's somebody who's looked into if you do hyperbaric chamber treatments, can it help the brain, the loss of memory due to trauma? And I found some studies of like women who had been sexually abused as young people, and then they were older and they did the study and they did the hyperbaric chamber treatments alongside art therapy, and they actually had memories come back. The first like 3 months they did it was like really painful, and it was a lot of the dark memories, but after that point they actually started having the positive memories that were also thrown out during that period of time.
Oh, okay. Because I was,
And
yeah, okay.
because like all of it just kind of got.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, interesting. And then I really want to be able to do this. And then lo and behold, God brings into my knowing. I have one of my high school best friends, Hannah Hassett, her dad, who used to be like a carpenter, like put carpet in, he now fixes hyperbaric chamber treatments, and they live like 8 minutes away from me. And they had one.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, but they didn't have the oxygenator. So I was like, hey, how about if I buy one, then I can just use the thing and you can hook it up. So for while I was writing my book, I would go over to their house every night after I put my kids to bed, sit in there and write or study for the LSAT. And that's my favorite place to write. And I haven't been back over there to write recently because of the pneumonia. And I'm sure you can still hear the sinuses. And you can't go in there because it would push it deeper into my sinuses. So I have to
Oh,
wait till
okay.
like my sinuses are perfectly healed before I can go into the hyperbaric chamber treatment.
So do you feel, like, because you're mentioning the pressure, do you feel the pressure on you, or
You
you just
do. It's
feel,
not like bad though. It's just kind of
okay,
like,
okay.
ooh. And yeah, and I just sit in there and have the little oxygen thing on my face. And
I don't know why I was acting like when you said 8 feet, I don't know why I'm thinking like, oh, that's so deep, but no, like you go to like a 7 feet, 8 feet pool. So yeah,
yeah,
I
I
see
mean,
what
like
you're saying.
there is a pressure to it, but and like you feel your ears do the popping and all that kind of stuff while you're in there. But once
Okay.
it's popped and stuff, I mean, you get used to it.
That's
So
interesting. I gotta look that
yeah,
up. That's really
so
cool.
yeah, so
And
I did
ironic that your
notice.
friend had that.
No, but like that's again, it was like, but I didn't know they had it. And then I found out because like my sister was talking to Mr. Haskell, she was gonna like leave some of her. She's an arborist, and she was leaving like brush at his house and stuff because he would burn it for her. And she's like, yeah, but has one of those. And I was like, what? I was like, oh, they've never told me because like we go to church together and everything. And I was like, even thinking of doing like a study that had hyperbaric chambers involved just so I could get it for free because like to pay for that would be
Okay.
like extraordinarily expensive. And I was like, lo and
Yeah.
behold, the Hassets who live 8 minutes away have it. So like I
That's
put my kids to bed,
amazing.
drive over there, do it, and yeah. So I had a lot of my writing sessions in there, and
That's amazing. And like you said, you don't think about when people lose their memory due to trauma. You don't think about, like, it's like, why would you want your memories back? But it's like, there's also good, that happens, and
mm.
you don't think about losing those as well. So you have to fight to get through
Well,
the
also I
good.
want my working memory to be better because it was like when I go
Oh,
to law
okay.
school, I need. I was like,
Mhm.
for instance, I don't, and then, like my therapist says this is also, she thinks just because I have so many kids and I'm always watching them, but like I used to remember every face, every story that I heard.
Mm.
Never remember the names often, but like if I talked to you and you told me a story, I'd remember it. I'd remember your
Right.
face too. And then after having the triplets, people will be talking to me. I'd be talking to other people, and then people come up to me and they'd know stuff about me, and I'm like, I don't know who you are at all. And it was horrifying that like they know these
Mm.
things about me, and I'm like, I don't remember who the hell you are. And like that still happens. Like I'm dropping my kids off at Awana the other day, and this woman was like, hi, and I'm like, oh, like, cause I just don't know who she is. And I'm just like,
I see.
it's hard. Well, and
I
also
see.
like a lot of the people out here are Scandinavian, white,
Mm.
blonde. They look very similar. And it's hard, you know. And like I stand out because like I'm like really pale, dark because I'm like part Asian, and then I got mixed kids. But the rest
Yeah.
of them, like they're all just Scandinavians. It's hard to remember who they are. It is. I'm just like, oh.
Hi. Hi, Paula.
Hi, Stephanie. Which one is your name? I just don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
especially
hard.
with them knowing things about you. I can understand how that would be hard.
Yeah. Well, then you just feel bad too, because I'm like, I don't remember talking to you at
Yeah.
all. And so I just tell people now, I'm like, I'm sorry. After having the triplets, I'm like, I don't remember anything.
I wonder, I saw like this IVF mom who had triplets and it was an accident. So they wanted twins because they thought that was going to be their only opportunity to have kids. But then they just happened to have a natural birth while they were inseminated. So then they had triplets.
Mm.
And it, like, took years off her life, like, she has to take medication for her heart because her body couldn't handle it, and just it's been a while since I, like, seen it, but she was basically just explaining the all the things that her body lost after having triplets. So, for you, if it's just your memory,
Like, not so
at
bad.
least you don't have to take heart medication, no.
Well, but like I conceived naturally, so I think like my body was like meant for it because like twins run in my
Mhm.
family. So like my sister-in-law has twins, so
Okay,
I
okay.
dropped 2 eggs. One egg split into identical boys, and then the other egg was Trinity. So that's how I ended up with 3.
Oh, I was wondering, I was like, "How do they look so similar?" I
Yeah,
was like, "Wow." I mean, honestly, I feel like all your kids look very similar.
they do. I got lost a lot of weight during this pregnancy because I simply couldn't eat. Both like
Mm,
Trey, jeez, I blew up. And
yeah, I was
also, I
big. My
retained so much
legs.
water. And then I was like, married to a horrible person.
Mm,
But then when TJ was gone, like a lot of the stress was gone, you
yeah.
know? And I was like, oh, because I was perpetually feeling like I had to be Nancy Drew all the time, try to
Oh,
see what he was doing, catch him with what he was doing, because he just couldn't believe anything he ever said. And yeah, so it's
how are you
like,
feeling now?
I'm like way more peaceful now. Like, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about like finances suddenly disappearing. My family's super supportive. I have a great support system. Yeah. And so I don't know. I like my routines. I like my life. I've thought about if I met somebody, well, no guy could replace 3 people and the support that I get from my mom and my dad and my brother.
Mm,
But like I was also, I'd like to actually ever like feel loved and cherished because I don't think TJ really had the capacity to love. I don't think it was that he didn't want to. I think it's just that he couldn't. I think he was just that broken of a human.
mm,
And
mm,
I definitely never felt cherished by him because if somebody cherishes you, they wouldn't treat you the way he treated me. They wouldn't cheat on you. Like there was a statement that my pastor Jonathan would always say, and he goes, "I don't not cheat on Miss Joanne because the Bible says not to cheat on Miss Joanne." He goes, "I don't cheat on Miss Joanne because I love her." And every time he said that throughout the years that I went there, I was always like, "So you're saying TJ doesn't love me because he perpetually cheats on me?"
mm,
And that was just hard, especially when grow up thinking, oh, if I keep my virginity safe and I get married, I thought my virginity had some sort of magical properties that it would fix all his sexual issues. And that's just not how it works. But even though I had been told that, like people tell you, like, oh, if they have like pornography issues or if they have issues with cheating, just because they can have sex with you doesn't mean they're not going to have these issues. Like I thought, no, my magical vagine is going to fix everything. And no, it didn't. However magical it may be, didn't fix it. So, yeah.
I get that. I get that, and I get that.
You thought you had a magical vagine as well?
No, no.
With TJ and stuff, I don't oftentimes, when I talk to my kids about TJ, I refer to him as simply TJ. I don't call him your dad often, unless they ask, who's my dad? And I'm like, well, TJ. But he's not their dad. He doesn't function as a dad. He was there for 3 years of life of Trey and for a year and a half of Trini's, and then actively tried to harm us the rest of it. Stole cars, wired away money, made those crazy videos. People threatened us in those videos, comments of people praying curses on us from his cult. saying, oh, we pray curses down on them. I'm like,
Wow.
you're praying, you think this is of the Lord, praying curses on children. And their ideology, because I didn't go with him, I'm a Jezebel and wicked, and therefore all the children by me are henceforth wicked. And it's just like, obviously very broken and crazy pants.
Yeah.
And then he tried to be like, oh, you'll always be my wife because I took your virginity and blah, blah. Because virginity is like a huge thing in the cult. Like, that's like for them. Yeah, I don't know. Just so sick and twisted. And like, you said, what is one thing that's changed? Every time I read the Bible now, anything that's like goes against what the cult has to say, it sticks out to me like a sore thumb. Like New Testament, Old Testament, or in the Old Testament, like I used to never find Leviticus very interesting. I found it very interesting this time because like all the rules that they don't follow. And I'm like, you know, and like, gotta be in my bonnet about it. But it's like, I don't know that will ever go away because like literally anytime that I see, like I've been reading First John a lot recently. Like I just keep going over it because it's a very seemingly contradictory book. And so it's like I've been having to read it because sometimes it'll be like, if you say that you have no sin, the truth is not in you. But then like chapter 4 of the book, it's like, you know, you shouldn't be sinning anymore. Like there should be no sin in you. It's like, so how can you say that you have no sin and that's wrong? And then to tell us that you must not sin. And I talked to my dad about it and he was like, well, based on my commentary, he's talking about like the spiritual man, you know, how Paul talked about like, I do not want to sin, but my flesh keeps on sinning. So it's not I who does it, but the flesh in me that does it. So he was like, kind of tore it apart and did it like that. I was like, oh, okay. I'll give you that. But you know, there's just like a lot of the verses often say like, if you say that you love the Lord and hate your brother, the truth is not in you. And there was a very vivid conversation of TJ telling me that he hated me when all of this was going down. Hated me in his heart. And so I remember I told him, I was like, you're obviously not in the right because First John says that if you know, how can you love a God whom you've not seen if you hate a brother you have seen? And he goes, well, I only hate you in my heart. It's not the same. I was like, as opposed to what? Hating me from your foot? I was like, pretty sure hating you from your heart is like the worst place to do it from.
Yeah.
What?
You're just like, okay.
Yeah, but like every time I go over that book and like hearing that, and also like that it's painful to think that like you gave so much of your life to somebody and they turn around and tell you that they hate you. Obviously, he's a sick pup and cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But like, I mean, the level of malice and planning to try to harm me that he employed is shocking. You know, like all the videos, like he would be lying and saying like, oh, I'm still thinking about, you know, joining the cult. Like I haven't firmly decided. All the while he's forging my signature on documents to sign the car over to himself. Like that was how he went about stealing the car. It was through aggravated forgery. And then like planned it, signed it from himself to the cult, from the cult, then waited till Eileen's birthday, Kabir's ex-wife, to come and then steal it from my house. So they waited months. They had all of it set, but like it was all very planned out to do it on her birthday because they saw me as like her Padawan learner because that's the way teacher always talked to me, like, what's she telling you to do? Because I know, like, I think in Kabir's mind, he was playing like a chess game with Eileen through hurting me, even though that wasn't the type of relationship Eileen and I had.
So her husband was also in the same cult.
Correct. And he was leading the Green Bay faction of it. And he was also in the NFL. Wow. And left his family. And they had been married 16 years and she had 8 kids by him. And also left while pregnant with one of them. She didn't realize she was pregnant when she left.
And she got remarried.
She is remarried, yeah. Yeah. She's been remarried, I think, for like 3-ish years now.
Do they have any other kids?
He had 7 kids from a different marriage prior. And then obviously she had 8. So
Wow.
no, they did not have any more. And I think his kids still live in Wisconsin, but they're in California now. So, but I think his
Wow.
kids are mostly grown.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So, but and her ex-husband, he's like still very adamantly, like he'll still make videos about her, talk about her all the time. And so that's a really interesting thing too. Like his love that turned hatred is so much stronger. And
Mm.
I've told her this before. I think Kabir actually really loved you because his love turned hate is so strong. I was like, he talks about you more than he talks about any of his new wives. I was like, you're
Mm.
talked about way more, and his like amount of emotional energy that he puts forth and his vehement hatred of you is pretty intense. I go,
Mm.
whereas TJ doesn't do anything anymore about me. His last few videos had nothing to do with me. He doesn't talk about his kids. He doesn't do any of that. It's just
Does
like
that hurt
he
you?
wiped it off the board, you know, which in one sense is great for me and my kids because we're not consistently harassed. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
But in another, it also tells me it's like, well, that's also just indicative of the fact that he just didn't have very much love to turn to hatred because I don't think he
Mm.
had a capacity for deep love to even turn that way.
I see.
So, yeah.
I really appreciate your time and you sitting down and chatting with me. I know
Yeah,
it's
it's
getting
fun.
late
Like
your
definitely
time.
once we got the feel for each other, because I was like not really sure what to expect. Because I did a podcast with Eileen because she has her own thing, but she and
Right.
I obviously we never met in person, but we knew each other, and so we were talking about like our story. And then with the other podcast, the Sports Illustrated one, I had been talking to Kayleen forever,
Mm.
asking her questions because she had done so much research into that cult and stuff like that. And so like every
Wow.
time something would happen, I would ask her and stuff like that. Like I still talk to her because right before our podcast released, the Ohio branch of the cult, which is also led
Hmm.
by an ex NFL player, he was arrested for beating the hell. So that's the only one that the wife went with. That's the only one who did. The rest of us wives never went with. And he was beating the
Oh,
crap
okay.
out of his kids. And so she like brought him to her mom because she was fearful for his life, would be the imagining like his face like looked like a football, like it was so swollen. And then she went and picked up her son and was bringing her back. And her grandma was like, no, like your husband's a crazy pants. And she brought him anyway. So then she called the police. The police pulled her over. The son wasn't in the car. So then the question is, where's the son? Like, you just picked him up. Where is he? So then they're like, you need to show us that he's okay. And they kept talking to them and they like wouldn't show that. And so then the police eventually had to like go break into the cult branch and like went in with like armored military vehicles and like all this kind of stuff. Found the son, he was fine, but then arrested the mom and the dad for the mom for not complying with the police and the dad for the abuse and the non-compliance. And supposedly this year is when the court cases were supposed to be happening. They haven't heard anything on the news because it was like all over Fox News when this happened. So they added like a little tidbit of it to the end of the podcast that we did with Sports Illustrated because it like literally happened right as we're about to release it.
Wow.
And so for me, that was also very vindicating because I told TJ that they abused kids in this cult. And he was like, no, they don't. And he even like sent me videos like while he was at the cult of like the kids playing on the playground. I was like, see, do they look abused? And I'm like, yeah, because abused kids don't play on playgrounds. Like, of course they do. They're very resilient. They're going to pack that in the back. All this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So to see that another NFL player who was abusing the hell out of his kids was like for me more vindication of like, yes, you made the right decision and not going. Not that it was ever
Yeah.
even like an option, but it was like, see, you said they weren't abusing kids, and how did his face look like that? And I guess the people who interviewed the other children admitted that they also get beatings like that too, because she had more kids with this guy. That was just the oldest one. And I'm just like,
I just don't understand why when they know all this stuff is going down within these organizations, I don't understand why they're allowed to like post on YouTube and do all that. I don't get it.
well, freedom of speech.
That's true.
They can't. I mean, like, I think there should be other, like, and when all this was happening, there was an FBI agent talking to me, like, trying to ask me, like, if I knew anything about, like, had they mentioned guns? Like, they were trying to figure out ways to raid those places. But,
Mm.
there's certain laws. in place. And also they're very militant, and they like have like all of them are trained in guns. All of them are like men and women. It's one
Wow.
thing that the women do. Carrying around like AK-47s and crap like that. Just bizarre. That was the one thing TJ did steal, was all of our guns. Even I had an AR, and like it was handmade for me. We went up all the way up north, and like I picked out
Wow.
all the pieces, the scope, like all the things. He wouldn't give it back. So I was like, if you don't give it back, I'm going to sell your jerseys. He didn't give it back. So I sold most of his jerseys.
Well, all right. This has been, it's hitting me. This has been awesome. So many different
Oh my
stories.
gosh, it's 2:24. Minnesota goodbye, or this is something you have to deal with Minnesotans. You have to be like, okay, we're getting off. Because like I have this issue with everybody. It's like a personal problem. It's Minnesotans in general, but I have it very strongly.
I feel like when people want to talk, I'm like, I don't want to cut you off. So I'm sorry. But I'll let you go and I'll let you go to bed. And thank you again. Okay. So this was a long one. This was a nice, long conversation with Christiana. So thank you so much. Just wanted to close out the show. You can definitely follow me at Kaylee Berlinee on all social media platforms. Follow the podcast at Mothering Holistically on Instagram and Facebook, and then tag us hashtag Mothering Holistically podcast if this story completely shocked you like it shocked me. So if you like this episode and feel that it resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up by clicking that like button. It definitely helps us out, so we really appreciate it. And if you feel it can encourage someone or entertain someone or inspire someone that you know, feel free to share it and subscribe while also hitting that notification bell to never miss a weekly episode. Episodes come out every Saturday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So until next time, remember to mother holistically and thrive authentically. I'm your host, Kaylee Berlinee, and together we're winning. Bye, y'all.